Fans, we are live on the Hannibal TV on YouTube with another edition, a special edition of the Great North Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby, Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and we have today a very, very interesting individual on the podcast, a man whose work I was definitely a fan of back in the day, and he's got some very interesting stories and anecdotes and insights into the business. And it's one of those interviews that I really wanted to do professionally. So it's an honor for me to welcome the man known as the Illustrious one, Jonnie Stewart. Jonnie, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jack. Maybe we should give your viewers like a minute to Wikipedia who I am. And
No,
I've been waiting a month to say that. No, thank you for having me, folks. Look, I know I did not. I disappointed a lot of people. I did not reach my complete potential, so we don't need to keyboard warrior me that in the chat room. I'm here as a former professional wrestler on and off for 25 years that is willing to be completely unvarnished and unbiased about my mutual history with almost every wrestler out there, which I think would be interesting to the viewers of me giving, as I go along my bizarre career, which I'm the Buddy Landell without the drug abuse. Um, that was a joke. Uh, that Jack and I talked about it. We would, I bring up the characters of the other wrestlers in each territory. I think I have some really good insight, funny stories, and some stories I promised Jack and Devon that have never been told before, including a confession by Jimmy Snuka to myself one night late in Arkansas. Oh yeah, you're going to want to record this. It's going to get interesting. So yeah, so for those of you that might not say, God, this guy was never with WrestleMania. Why should I listen to him? Well, I know everything, almost about every star that was out there from the 2005, and towards the past. So, and I've had a really unique experience, kind of having the smorgasbord of pro wrestling instead of a main course. So I hope that I can make it worth your while and listen today, this interview.
Well, notwithstanding your very self-deprecating comments, you most definitely had the it factor and made your mark, albeit in a less protracted period of time. Otherwise, we wouldn't be sitting here. And I'll tell you, the fan response when we announced that we were going to do this interview was quite impressive. Got a lot of questions, but I think it's good to start in terms of a baseline for everyone watching to ask you about growing up. Were you a fan of this business, and did you have a specific company, territory, individuals that influenced you?
Question. Because I had the playboy, spoiled brat persona, people think that I did not pay my dues, fans and some wrestlers, which is bizarrely enough, the complete opposite. I was obsessed with pro wrestling. A very quick story. My dad was a Chicago automobile dealer. There was an automobile dealer that sponsored pro wrestling, Dick the Bruiser Pro Wrestling, named Ben's Auto Sales. He gives my dad tickets, and my dad and takes my mom, me, and my sister in like '79 to the International Amphitheater, which was like going to the Star Wars bar, of pro wrestling. My
Mm.
mother has dressed us all in sailor suits. And my dad's in his like corporate, nice slacks and stuff. And we walk in and the crowd is like, who in the F are these absolute yuppie marks from the suburbs? And but the story is that I looked up in the ring and I was absolutely captivated at 10 years old. I remember sitting there during the first match with people yelling, blood, we want blood. Yes, Chicago, the '70s, first match, yelling for blood. I said, I am doing this for a living. I'm not joking around. I'm not telling people like, oh, yeah. I was, if you could find a more obsessed person that wanted to be in pro wrestling in their youth, other than like Mick Foley, and I'll grant him that, There wasn't. Everyone in Chicago knew, oh, Jack and Carol's kid. The guy, he wants to be a pro wrestler. But I was also a great football player. It was all conference, all area, all city, all suburban, all state honorable mention. But my grade point average was horrible because I went to a college prep, difficult high school. So my father hears from Ben's Auto Sales that pro wrestling was popular and school was down in Memphis. Now, folks, listen to me here. Jack, this is important. In 1985, getting into pro wrestling was harder than getting into the mob. I mean that sincerely.
Yeah.
There was, and they did that, especially pro wrestling, to make sure that if it was hard enough for you to get in, hard enough of training to make it through, that would be a good barometer of you to keep the secret, keep going, not hurt anybody, follow the rules, follow the entire mechanisms of the pro wrestling industry. And that actually was a very good, sound a way of modus operandi of getting people in the business. Let them work their ass off, finagle, and it worked, and it kept guys to keep the secret. It kept guys in line, and I have to credit the wrestling business for that. So I go down to Memphis. I'm showing up at the matches. This is the last sellout, the Buddy and Bill show against Dutch and Jerry. I'm a fan at this point. And the wrestlers are knowing me because I'm getting involved with them. It was the Dingo Warrior and Sting were there, Dundee, Mantel, um, and Lawler and Buddy Landell. And so, anyways, so I start spring practice for Memphis State football. It's the hardest freaking thing I've ever done in my life. And the freshman coach, and I'm not getting long story here. This is a good story. The freshman coach calls my father and he says, look, Vlad John's got a lot of potential, but he's probably going to ride the bench for 4 years until he sees the playing field. And my dad called me up at the frat house. He's like, "Are you sure you want to? I know you're Division I football team, the Liberty Bowl, but are you sure? Just like a good father, like you don't have to do this from your mom and I." 2 days later, a fraternity brother of mine comes running into the frat house. John, I saw Buddy Wayne in a grocery store. And I think a lot of people that Memphis wrestling, Buddy Wayne was the spot show guy. He had the ring. We bring the ring to TV studio every Saturday. He was a wrestler himself for 30 years. So I get his number. I sit down with Buddy Wayne. Long story short, he is totally convinced with the whole amphitheater story and why I came to Memphis State that I would get into wrestling, that I would, be a qualified candidate. I leave the Memphis State football team. I trained to be a pro wrestler. But in that training time, I went to all the spot shows, took the ring down, put the ring up, took it down at TV. I trained in the Memphis TV wrestling ring. That was Buddy Wayne. So all of the boys did see me take the ring down, put the ring up, and and that did give me a little bit of a pass. Here's the problem. And like Jim Cornette says, well, they never fucking do this again. So my first match, and by the way, to credit to Jeff Jarrett and his dad and Jerry Lawler, I literally hit the best week of Memphis wrestling, in my opinion, in 5 years. It was the Thunderdome week. I'll get to that. So first match is the Old Miss Coliseum, the basketball arena for Old Miss. That's my first match against Buddy Wayne, and he puts me over. And I'm in the ring. I'm going, I won. And Jerry Calhoun goes, I wasn't supposed to win. So it was great. So Lawler and all of them gave me a nice gift in the wrestling business. 10,000 seat arena. My next night, folks, again, Cornette will tell you, they'll never repeat this again. I'm in the opening match in a spot show. Bill Dundee doesn't show up, and Buddy Wayne goes to Jerry, well, why don't you just let Jon Stewart team with you in the main event? Nobody, 600 people out here. So my second night in the wrestling business, my third match, I am in the main event with Jerry Lawler against Rip Rogers and Dutch Mantel, but they didn't take advantage of it. I mean, it was unbelievable. I was walking out with Jerry Lawler in this high school gym. I'm like, I don't believe this is happening. And Rip Rogers gave me a bloody nose, and Jerry and Dutch Mantel thought it was the funniest thing in the world. The third night in the wrestling business in Memphis, I get teamed with Van Horn. They try us out as the Beach Boys. And the fourth match of my life, I have a character, the Beach Boys, tag team. I go over on Memphis TV. So now I'm going to give you the unvarnished real pro wrestler thing. That was the worst fucking thing that could ever happen to me
Mm,
ever. Not because I felt like I was, oh, look at this. I knew
mm,
that they were looking
mm,
for talent, and I happened to be in the right place at right time, which is part of wrestling. But looking back, it helps set up a it helps set up a false delusion that all of this success, and I will get, perceived success, really was a detriment later on in my career where I refused because of pride, and I'm Johnny Stewart, to go to the arenas without being booked, to not, to fly to Connecticut and go to Vince's office and say, wait, you wanted me in 87. I'm here. Not, and I'll get to that too. So we go on the road now. Now I get the booking sheet for June, and we go on the road of the Thunderdome. I will finish this little part here, complimenting Jeff, Jerry Jarrett, and Jerry Lawler. It's Memphis Coliseum on Monday. There's like 7,000 people. The next day, Louisville Gardens. There's like 5,000 people. The next day is Evansville Wednesday. Thursday is not a spot show. This was a Thursday at Lexington Rupp Arena. I'm a Memphis
mm.
wrestler. My first week in the business, and I'm walking with my bag to Rupp Arena with 18,000 seats. They cut it off to 9,000. Again, folks, I'm complimenting it was my dream job that Jerry Lawler let me do this. We're walking into Rupp Arena. Next day was Jackson, Tennessee, this cute little Mid South Coliseum. Saturday TV, Jonesboro Civic Center. This Sunday, I'm like, I don't believe this. This is great. I get my first check. This is 86. I'm a freshman in college. I get a check for $925 from which is like $3,200 today. So people and I had not a good experience in 90 with Mid South, but unlike most pro wrestlers who bitch, moan, and complain, I, my first week with Mid South, Jerry Lawler and Jerry Jarrett was freaking just, just a dream job, just a dream job. It was just awesome.
And you sound it sounds like in addition to being in the right place at the right time, they obviously saw something in you to do this with you, and sounds like you got paid, which goes against the grain as well. Paid in terms of good compensation.
Yeah, that wasn't my experience in 90. Like
Mm,
Austin and the Undertaker, but yeah, they respected that I Buddy Wayne trained me. Then Jerry Bryant came over and gave me my polishing PhD. Jerry Bryant worked with me 2 or 3 times in the ring, and Buddy Landell, who took a shine to me. I call myself the $5 Buddy Landell without the drug problem. And Buddy, Jerry Bryan told Buddy, "You got to see the kid punch. He's ready. He can throw a punch because you are not getting into a Memphis ring if you cannot throw a punch." So Buddy Wayne made sure that. Now there's things that Buddy did not tell me about the handshake and about not being. I got criticized, Jack. They thought I had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in that February. It was a false reading. So here I am. I'm not going to die of cancer. I'm living my dream job as a pro wrestler, fulfilling what I told everybody in high school 6 months ago. And I got a lot of flack for being happy. And this is the unvarnished truth that you'll hear, that one of the things that I never understood about the wrestling business to some degree is what Vince Russo did say. And I don't have a lot of things I agree with Vince Russo, but Vince Russo was like, I've never seen human beings more tense, more uptight, wrapped tighter than airport sandwiches. And I got heat in Memphis for being happy, for smiling, how could you be in a bad mood? I'm losing my dream job in these beautiful arenas, making $900 a week. So, so it was a weird business that I did not fully comprehend. And all it took was, and again, another thing to tell the viewers, would have been somebody like Buddy Wayne. And I'm not putting my trainer down. I'm just saying that Buddy Wayne should have took me aside and said, John, you're 19. You don't have a wife. You don't have kids. You've got a townhouse you're sharing with 3 other college kids for $200 a month. These men have mortgages, right, Jack? Kids in college, wives that are bitching on the phone. Why aren't you home? They're getting older. Because Memphis was the place you came to start or the place you
Yeah.
went to finish. They're older. They're at the end of the career. You're this young guy. By the natural selection, they're going to not like you because you're just starting out. And you're in college. You're got an education, and you're with these guys that are not not highly educated, skilled workers. And if somebody would have told me that, I would have been a little bit more demure. I was not a loudmouth, Jack, in the locker room. Jeff Jarrett, Tracy Smothers, Tanaka, Billy Travers could all attest. But I was always smiling and, hey, everybody. And that rubbed people up the wrong way. And that's the first thing I didn't like about the wrestling business. And the second thing, and I'll finish here with this statement. I'm going to tell you something, ladies and gentlemen. Uh, any pro wrestler from like 2005 back who did the territory circuit, you ought to throw rose petals down at their feet, because you have no idea what it's like to do 500-mile road trips, get in the car the next day, 200 miles, get in the car 300 miles, back 500 miles. I went from Memphis to Louisville. It was 6 hours as Van Horn, my tag team partner, my third day in the business, was in the Hope Motel getting our room. I sat in his truck. He had a little Mazda pickup truck, and I went, oh, there's no way I could do this for a living. I had this epiphany, I'm like, wait a minute. I just drove 6 hours. Tomorrow I'm going to drive 150. The next day, 200. The next day back to Memphis, 6 hours. Then another 2 hours. And I'm like, I don't think I have attention deficit disorder. At third day in the business, I'm like, holy shit, I don't think I can handle this. I don't think I can handle this. And I just want to compliment every single one of my colleagues. I never call them the boys because that's an insult. Every one of my colleagues that did the road, the Landells, the Coronets, the Snookas. I mean, these guys that did the UWF, Mid South, Memphis, Georgia circuits, Calgary, folks. These men and women are freaking god. They're superheroes. They are freaking gods. As Ric Flair said, the territories sucked for the lower rung guys. And I am here. If you take anything from this interview, that these these men are superhuman men to deal with this for 10, 15, 20 years. The Dutch Mantels, again, the Cornets, the Landells, the guys in Calgary. It was zombie like, and I have nothing but respect for every single person that did that for more than a month.
Yeah, yeah, very, very good points. Speaking of, horrendous drives and renowned long punishing drives. According to the research that I did, you moved on from Memphis to the UWF, the Universal Wrestling Federation. Wanted to ask you about how that came about, your experience with the Cowboy, and
Right.
I noted that you did some TV shots like right off the bat too against Big Bubba, Ray Trailer, and anything else about
Did you
that
know that?
particular
It's
experience?
good research. Yeah. So I Joe LeDuc comes to the locker room and he's mad at me in Memphis because I'm smiling during a bunkhouse match between him and Paul Diamond. Where's the Peach Boy? I mean, Buddy Landell's eyes, the locker room, the babyface locker room stopped. And I'm in the shower and I come out. He goes, "This is the way I make my bread and butter. And don't you ever smile at ringside at when I'm in the ring ever again." He was right. He was right. I was wrong. But the nightmares were making me laugh. Whatever. So, and then Fire and Flame, Dirty Rhodes and Ron Bass, they had it out for me too. They had it out for me, but they wanted to break me in the business. They were backdropping me on the concrete floor. So Dutch Mantel, who probably doesn't remember me, but was the sweetest guy in the world. Dutch sits me down in Louisville. He goes, Beach Boy, you're going to die here. I mean, they're going to fucking kill you. And you got to get out. And Buddy Landell now is behind Dutch. I'm going to give you a number. Name is Bill Watts, UWF out of Tulsa, Louisiana. And tell him Dutch sent you, and you got to get out of here. They're going to kill you here. Can you imagine having a job at IBM and the director tells you got to leave? The vice presidents want to kill you. I mean, another part of the wrestling business, I was like, so anyways, as Dutch is saying, go to Bill Watts. Buddy Landell is behind Bill Watts going, and Buddy's doing this with the car. And I'm like, what? And I asked Buddy later. Again, Buddy was like my older brother. He's like, look, you'll drive the wheels off them fucking cars, Johnny. And he just fucking go back to Chicago. Go work for your daddy's car dealership. So anyways, my partner and I, Van Horn, called Watts, and he said, well, I'll let you do some enhancements, blah, 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 see how you do. And so I flew from Chicago to Memphis. Memphis, we got into a car. Memphis to Fort Worth. Memphis to Fort Worth, Texas. We got there again. It's I have so much respect for the guy. I can't do this. I'm not built for this. So that night before the matches, we went to Gillies. I just want to say one thing, quick story here. I saw Missy Hyatt for the first time in my life, 1987, Missy Hyatt. I'm going to tell you something. I have never seen a more prettier young lady in my life. Not that she was like European model, and I'm complimenting her now. I looked at her across the bar. She was with a couple of girlfriends. Just her tan, the white blonde hair and the earrings and the lipstick or white teeth. She was like stunning. I'm like, well, maybe this isn't going to be such a bad territory. So, and that was the night Magnum came back. Quick little funny story about that. Jim Crockett, when he had, what was Big Boss Man's name in UWF?
Big
I
Bubba
wrestled
Rogers.
Bubba Rogers. I'm telling you, Jim Cornette was looking at Bubba Rogers like this. Like a football coach looking at a 6'6" football. I will never forget that, because Crockett's just bought the territory, I believe, or we're going to. And so we did some jobber matches, and then we had to drive to Tulsa the next day from Fort Worth. And they didn't put us on because it was running out of TV and whatnot, and it just kind of fizzled. And I told Van, I'm like, I don't even want to pursue this. I don't even want to call the office. I can't do these drives. I don't know what the frick to do. And Van's like, well, just stick around Chicago for now, and you're still in college, and that's what I did. And I promised people to tell stories. Quick story. First of all, uh, uh, oh my, Gary Windham was partying around Magnum the whole time with Magnum with his arm and his. I never saw a nicer. Barry Windham was so kind to Magnum. I always want to say always wanted to say that publicly. How nice Barry Windham in this shitty business of pro wrestling back in the territory days. How nice he was to Magnum. I always wanted to say that publicly. The other thing I wanted to say about the UWF, and if I'm butchering his name, Jack, step in. Terry Sopinski. Is he the warlord?
Yeah, Sapinski.
He was with Watts for like 4 hours, like 4 weeks. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the biggest, whitest human being I have, Jack. He was on a payphone. His shoulders, I have never seen. I've been around football players I have never seen a bigger human being other than Andre than the warlord. I don't know. That remember he had a cable knit sweater on. Like, this guy is the size of an orca whale. Holy shit. I don't know why I brought that up, but I always wanted to say that. Yeah. So I went back to Chicago, and I sat around for 2 or 3 months, and this is another thing that I think people should know. I think your viewers would find this interesting. That one of the things that I did not think was smart about the wrestling business back then, there wasn't like a central booking office. I didn't even know who to call. Buddy Wayne tried to get me with Lawler at Dundee at WCW. I didn't know there was a Florida wrestling circuit. I didn't know there was the Fullers or Calgary. And that bothers me still to this day that you couldn't go somewhere or get a mailed a list of promoters' addresses and phone numbers and start making your calls. And yes, maybe that's my fault. I should have called Buddy Wayne more. And is there anywhere else to go to travel? So instead of obviously being in an opening match for Fuller's or the Grams, I sat around for like 3 months, and my dad got frustrated and called Bob Luce, who was the local promoter in Chicago, who was a complete freaking, a goof, but he's like, okay, great. I'm going to send him down for Bruiser TV in Indianapolis. So February of '87, right after Watts, I drove down to Indianapolis. Jack, I had a trench. Talk about making an impression. I had a trench coat on, my garment bag, a suit, and I walk into the Indianapolis TV, very professional, nice studio for Dick the Bruiser era. And Bruiser's at the table, and he looks up. He goes, "Can I help you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm here for wrestling." He goes, "Are you one of the station managers?" I said, "No, Bob Luce sent me down." And Dick the Bruiser goes, I swear to God, he goes, "Luce sent you?" I'm like, "Is there a problem?" He goes, "No, but only me and Luce sends me our tomato cans." So Bruiser immediately puts me in interviews with the Golden Line and Calypso Jim. And so for the whole 1987, I wrestled with Dick the Bruiser, which was my Chicago's wrestling promotion. Dick the Bruiser was like Bruno Sammartino if you lived in, Baltimore or New York. So, and that was quite an experience getting paid, $22 a shot for fairs and gymnasiums and stuff.
Was that looking at the time frame there? Was this around the time that you did your first shot afterwards chronologically with the AWA, and you did some TV work there initially with Adonis and Orton at the Showboat? How did that initial foray in the AWA, and we'll talk about your big run in the AWA in a minute, but how did that happen?
Big run. No, but thank you for saying that. No, so really enjoyed my time with Bruiser, traveling all over Illinois, into Indiana. A funny story, I would always get in trouble because I didn't kept forgetting Indiana was Eastern time, so I was constantly showing up late. Wrestled with Rick Steiner, who was just starting off. He's a little smug, not real talkative, typical. Not did I say Rick Scott Steiner? He's a little smug, um, little standoffish, but I liked him. I like Scott, and a terrible worker at that time, but with a great body. And they put him in with the great Wojo, who was the shits, who was an Olympic wrestler, who was just a horrible. I'm sorry, I'm being honest. I mean, nice guy, but just holy shit. And you put him in with Scott, and it was every match was an abortion. He should have been in with Steve Regal or something like.
Mm.
That's what you do. You take a young guy, put him with a veteran. Wojo was not a polished veteran, but I really enjoyed it. I was with Moose Cholak, who was our Gorilla Monsoon of the Chicago Midwest area, and all the boys liked me. I liked them. There wasn't any stiff heat or anything like that. But then I got recruited by Sam DeCiro, an AWA worker from Chicago, to start Windy City Wrestling. And Bruiser said, "So one time," and I'm like, "But I'm making $20. I have to do something else. I mean, where am I going with this?" So I started Windy City Wrestling with Sam DeCiro and Sonny Rogers back in '88, and I told Sam, "Look, you don't have me exclusive. I'm going to take other dates and stuff when it's applicable." And so that's when I did I flew out to Las Vegas in '88 to do enhancement for AWA because I felt that I had to get back in the circuitry, even though if it was going to do a job, I had to show up, let them see who I was. And I've got some really funny stories about that. So I fly to Las Vegas, and you do a match with Orton and Adonis. Orton cracks my sternum with his knee, so I can barely breathe. But I have a match against Kurt Hennig, and I looked like Kurt Hennig, like his little brother at the time. So Kurt's on the. You could talk to the heels with a closed circuit phone. And Kurt's like, look, we'll take it easy. He has no idea who I am or that I look like him. Kurt and I get in the ring. Do you know who didn't get in the ring? The freaking referee. You got to watch this on TV if they can show the whole match. So Kurt is looking at me. I'm looking at Kurt. We look the same. And so Kurt goes, come to the center. Come to the center. So I go to the center of the ring. He goes, well, it just went from a jobber match to a main event, what do you say, non-title title match, because we had to then do a face-off to kill this dead weird time because Vern or Greg forgot to send a referee to the ring. The true story. So it's just a cute, funny story. And we did this face off in the ring. Finally, the referee gets in. Kurt Hennig, I'm sure no one's going to not believe this, puts me over like $1 million, but obviously he went over, but he just put me over during the match. He gave me a bunch of stuff. And when I came back, Vern was looking at me, he goes, I like you. I like the way you look. He's like, but you keep your hands down, your arms down at your side. It's weird looking. And I'm like, what a dick. I'm like, what is he talking about? I know what he's talking about. I did not keep my arms up. I kept them at my sides back then. And it was actually really good advice, but it put me in the mind of Greg and Vern. And I had a great run with Windy City Wrestling. They rented the amphitheater in Chicago, the historic building. They had 5,500 people, 5,200 people for Battle of the Bam Bams, Bam Bam Bigelow versus Bam Bam Terry Gordy. We did a bunch of spot shows all over Illinois and Iowa. I didn't get paid a lot, but it was great. And I was like the front man of the promotion because I could speak well. So whenever there was a public appearance, and Sam was very Vince McMahon. And this is, I hope if there's any independent wrestling promoters out there that they do listen to a couple of things that I've seen that has worked. And Sam did Vince McMahon. He'd get booked in the town and he'd immerse the town with talent, personal appearances, TV, radio, everyone going on radio, TV. And I would get sent out a lot to do that, going on TV, going to radio interviews and whatnot. I enjoyed that. And then it helped me, hone my craft, learn how to speak articulately to the media. And I appreciate Sam DeCero for that. And it was a good decision to go with Sam because he hired Paulie Dangerously and Eddie Gilbert to book. And so, we got put in main events against Buddy Rose and Doug Summers, Dennis Condrey, and Randy Rose, right? I mean, do you think and Sonny Rogers, we were the Beach Boys, do you think we learned anything from this? It was like getting your PhD. I was so thankful. But what was nice, it put me in the mind of Eddie Gilbert. And so it's 1989. And I'll finish up before I go too long. And I get a call, Johnny, this is Arnett. I see you at a Windy City wrestling show, my boy, and I think you've got what it takes, and blah blah blah. And I want to bring you in. Like, okay, gee, this is great. It's working out just the perfect Jon Stewart plan. And I said, I've got the Ric Flair gimmick now. And he's like, I don't care. I don't have any young heels. So I'm thinking about, I'm like, they didn't in 89 really have a lot of heels to go against Pillman and Zink and Johnny Ace and whatnot. And so this is how you ruin your wrestling career. So he goes, I want you to show up. Folks, I actually did this. So don't laugh at me too hard. Show up at the UIC Pavilion. We're there in 10 days. Me and all the boys. Eddie Gilbert will then go through your instructions and we'll fly you down to CNN Center and sign the deal. And I said, well, what is the deal? And this was interesting. I don't know why he did this, but he started to tell me what everybody else was going to get because I was brought in with Zink, Pillman, Johnny Ace, and I was the fourth Stunad, if I could use my Italian verbiage, in that group. And he said, well, since Tom Zink has got experience, we're giving him $200,000 for 3 years. I'm like, oh, wow. Brian Pillman, we're giving $150 for 2 years. And Jim Cornette verifies this, by the way. And he said, Johnny Ace is 2 years at $150. He's like, but you're so young. You've got such a long road. would you accept 4 years at 150? I'm holding the phone. I'm like, this is fucking heck. I'm like, yeah, this is great. Thank you. I go down to the UIC pavilion, ladies and gentlemen, with a cream colored Boss Hogs suit on, gold Porsche Carrera sunglasses, my hair bleached blonde white, and Ric Flair comes out of the locker room and he, oh, you look at the photographer that we both knew, Mike Richards or Mike, whatever his name was. He's from Milwaukee, and he rolls his eyes. Instead of just dressing like a normal human being, going up to Ric Flair, Mr. Flair, you're my idol. I can't, toning down the mark, but still adulating him. I kayfabe Ric Flair. So Eddie Gilbert, introduces me to everybody. I knew a lot of the boys because I did some job
Sorry,
matches.
could I ask you,
Sorry.
your audio went out there just a sec. You said you had the bleach blonde, the shades, and Flair came out, and and then we kind of
Flair,
lost.
yeah, Flair comes out of the locker room, sees me standing at the entrance to the arena at the curtain, and he's looking at me like, who the fuck is this $5? As Larry Zabisco calls me, the $5 Ric Flair. He's like, he's looking at me like, it's to me. And he looks at the photographer and goes, and he walks away. And instead of me chasing him down, I mean, why would what an asshole I am? I mean, this is how you ruin your career. So Eddie Gilbert is eating a sandwich and he's talking to me. He goes, yeah, they're giving you a hell of a deal. Don't fuck it up. And as Eddie Gilbert is eating his sandwich, he's looking at my glasses and hair like, are you for fucking real? You're dressed as Ric Flair. What are you fucking whatever? So and Eddie liked me from the Windy City. So Jim Barnett calls, okay, well, you're going to have to drop out of college. I'm like, are you sure? He's like, yes. We're going to start you in 3 weeks. And now a week goes by. Oh, Jack, you know what's coming here. Now 2 weeks go by. Now 2.5 weeks go by, and I get a call from Paul Dangerously. He's like, did they call you? That voice, not Johnny. This is Paulie Dangerously. He's like, did they call you? I'm like, no. What's going on? He goes, He goes, look, they're booking by committee now. I'm just going to tell you what happened. You can ask Cornette. You can ask Eddie Gilbert. And he goes, and before I tell you, this made me feel really good, by the way. He's like, Eddie Gilbert fought like a mad dog for you. He said, when your picture came up after Pillman, Flair said, what the fuck do we need a Ric Flair ripoff for? If you need this fucking goof, you don't need the real Ric Flair. And it was Barnett and whoever else would have been like in the office went, oh, Rick, no problem, no problem, no problem. And even Rick said he was 40, he was going through psychiatric problems, and so this was not the time to poke the hornet's nest of Ric Flair. And I, unlike many wrestlers, take full accountability for being a complete asshole and just dressing normally, going up to Rick, begging him to Toolage me and whatnot. And so now I get the call from Barnett. Well, there was a problem. I said, yeah, the problem is Ric Flair doesn't want me there. He said, yes. And they said, I'm really sorry. I said, Jim, do you realize I just dropped out of college and the tuition's 10 grand a year? So, a year. And he's like, I'm like, and you told me to drop out. Now, and I left it at that. Now everyone's calling me, don't fucking sue. You're going to get, this is still the mafia, folks. You're going to get fucking blackballed. You think Vince McMahon's going to take you in 10 years from now that you sued WC? Let it fucking go. My fucking father and mother, I mean, my dad made a great living as an auto dealer, 10 grand in 89. I mean, my father was like right here. But I begged him, please don't call anybody. I was 21 years old. And then like 5 days later, I get a call from Dale Gagner, and he's like, he was with the office with AWA. He goes, Vernon Gregg heard about what happened with your contract. Would you like to wrestle for us? And I'm like, yeah, fantastic. He's like, we're shooting at Rochester Civic Center, every 3 weeks. We've got a lot of spot shows. I think it'd be a great experience. I think you should take the deal. It was like, like 250 a minimum guarantee, which wasn't bad back then per night. And in spring of 1989, instead of making 150,000 a year, I signed with Vern Gagne in the AWA. Sad story.
Well, that's wrestling. I mean, there's it's almost unavoidable back then to get heat, and you have silent heat. You don't know it, but I could see, given Flair's biography at the time, that he would feel
Yeah.
threatened by what. Before we get into the AWA,
Sorry for talking so long, by the way, folks.
no,
I
no, no.
apologize.
This
I
is
don't do these, so I got a lot to say. So I'm
no,
so sorry.
this is gold. This is
Okay.
exactly what
Okay.
the fans of the Hannibal TV want to hear.
Okay.
You did some shots in '88
Yeah.
for WWF syndicated TV, and I guess that was between your WCW deal and the first AWA appearance, if the chronology is correct. And you had
Yes.
some matches on TV against Dino Bravo, Bad News Allen, and Ted DiBiase. How did that
Yeah.
come about? And were they looking at you as perhaps bringing you on contract or giving you a spot then?
The second way you fuck up your wrestling career, what I'm about to tell the fans, it's a big deal, but I'm being absolutely honest with you, and this can be verified by 5 other people. So the same people, Tom Rocky Stone from Milwaukee, they like what I did with Vern. I told them, I said, if you got anything else, I'm willing to get myself out there. Despite being a star in Memphis for the summer, I guess I'm not a star in the real wrestling world. So he said, "Would you like to do TV for Vern? And you can for Vince McMahon, and you can bring Sonny. You can go as the Beach Boys." I'm, I'm like, he goes, "It's $300 a night." I'm like, "What?" You get a Lincoln Town car. They put you at the Holodome. I'm like, in, done, beautiful. I want to see what this is like. With the bigs going to play for George Steinbrenner. Sure enough, plane ticket. We get a Lincoln Town car. Sonny Rogers and I are driving. We're in Wichita, Kansas. It was just great. I went to the bathroom in Hulk Hogan's dressing room, not knowing it was Hulk's dressing room. I'm telling funny stories now. And I come out of the dressing room and I'm putting my things and I look up and there's Terry standing there. He's like, "How you doing, brother? That's a hell of a tan you got." I'm like, "Oh, thank you so much." I'm like, there's a big plastic garbage barrel of beer. And he's like, I'm like, "Is this your dressing room?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "I am so sorry. He's like, "It wasn't a Hulk Hogan sign on it. This was the 88." And he's like, "No, no, no, no problem. You got to leave." What no problem. He goes, I'm really impressed by your tan. Keep it up, brother." So I dressed by Andre. I actually helped Andre take his maroon colored Zanzibar pants off, and that was a odoriferous experience. But Andre was really, really cool to me. He took a shine to me, which I did not exploit. So I sat there and I said, and this is something for the young wrestlers to listen to. I said to myself, I've got an opportunity here. What can I do to like makes to get someone's attention, to get Vince's attention? What can I do? And I was wrestling Ted DiBiase, and I remember Bobby Heenan, like in '81, he was Irish whipped into the corner, and he did a backflip. Ladies, you think you're the first high flyer, hardcore? Bobby Heenan was. He did a backflip over the top rope, hand on the apron, feet on the floor. Incredible. And I'm like, I've never done it before. Fuck it. If I break my back, I break my back. So DiBiase and I get together. We're going to go 3 minutes. Ted, totally cool. Virgil standing there. And I said, "Ted, I really want to get Vince's attention. I want you to Irish rip me, and I'm going to leap backwards over the top rope." I'm not, Jack. I'm here to be honest. Virgil's standing there and he's looking at me, and I said, "I want to do a backflip over the top rope, get and fall on the floor." And Ted goes, "Are you fucking nuts?" I'm like, "Ted, I got to do this. I saw Bobby Heenan do it once." And Ted's like, "Well, they really want me to make a splash the next 2 weeks. They were setting him up for something." He said, "If you do that, brother," he goes, "you got me, you got a fan for life." So boom, 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 boom. And DiBiase backs me in the corner. They fucking don't show this on the WWF programming. Bobby Heenan's talking about something. All of a sudden you hear, oh my God. And then they show me on the floor, but I did the backflip over the top rope. Virgil is on the other ring post looking at me. Like, we're going to scrape this kid off with a spatula. Brings me back in, and Ted is bringing me back in the ring. He's like, holy fuck, kid. And he throws me in, and he pins me, and we get back to the fucking thing. And I'm not saying everyone, but about 7 or 8 guys are crowding. There was no gorilla position back then. It was Bobby Heenan had a curtain where you walked out, and somebody else at the heel curtain. It wasn't a gorilla position, but there were about 7 or 8 guys crowding around, and I walked back, and they're like, "Oh my God!" DiBiase comes flying down the hallway, and Jack, I got a little scared, like, "Oh shit, he's mad. He's gonna fucking attack me." He's It was great. I remember his face was beet red. He's like, fuck, oh my God, fantastic. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It was incredible. And I'm like, holy shit. And people, Hacksaw did Jim Duggan. Oh, that was pretty good. And so I'm like, geez, I really hope that made some inroads, got somebody's attention. In the next match I had against Dino Bravo, and I'm all in the back, and it was the second TV taping, and Jesse Ventura is standing there. Him and I, that's it, in the back of the Wichita Arena, which is weird because the only two I'm not bragging, folks, the only 2 wrestlers that ever ran for governor are me and Jesse Ventura. That was a little weird that it was just him and I, and he had this royal blue Bahama 2-piece suit on with a white shirt and this big Bahama hat with the sash coming down, cowboy boots. He looked like he was about 6'7", and he's going like this, and he's got tobacco in his mouth with that freaking chin, and he's looking at me. He goes, "You do that move often?" And I'm like, "No, first time." And he goes, "Make it your last." Like, am I in trouble? He goes, "No." He goes, "If you want to last in this business physically, make it your last time." Like, okay, duly noted. Anyways, fast forward. I'm bumping and bumping. Sonny Rogers and I all over the match. And the next night in Topeka, between tapings, just being honest, Vince McMahon's making his way down the locker room. We were all out in the aisle in the corridor dressing. And he said, can I speak to you for a minute? It's a pretty big guy. And he took me aside by the water cooler. There was a men and women's bathroom. And he said, "You really worked your ass off for me the past 2 nights. I appreciate it. Will you please give your number to Jay Strongbow? And please, we'll be in contact." Now, you can just hear honky talk, man, the voiceover. Fucking that Strongbow ruined more careers than fucking AIDS. So Strongbow was a dickhead. Sorry, I'm being honest. I'm like, Chief, here's my phone number and my name and my phone number. And he's like, "Vince really liked you." And I'm like, "Yeah, Bobby Heenan, also gave me a comment." He goes, "Vince liked you." I'm like, "Okay, great." They never called me. And I listened to the Milwaukee enhancement crew that's saying, "Don't call Vince. Don't call Vince. He's just going to make you a jobber. And you're 21 years old. Why would you destroy your career?" And I'm listening to nobody's tell me about my career instead of calling someone from Buddy Wayne or something, because I know what they would have told me. At least call Vince. See what he has to say. Maybe he's got a roadmap for you. I never followed up on that, listening to the enhancement guys, Tom Rocky Stone from Milwaukee. I'm not blaming Tom. He might have a point, but goddamn, a lot of jobbers that Vince hired under contract did become stars. And so that's, if you're wondering, geez, Jon Stewart had all these momentous moments. Why didn't he? Well, if you're not willing to knock on the doors, follow up, make calls, it's not going to just fall in your lap. And I was under the assumption, unfortunately, that Memphis main event, $150,000 contracts, I'm hot shit. I don't have to call it, follow up. Bullshit. Bullshit. I'm telling young people out there, if you're a director or you want to be vice president, you make the calls, knock the door down. Don't you freaking let anyone come to you. You go to them if you're going to learn anything from a nitwit like me that completely, really hurt his wrestling career. So that's how the Vince McMahon thing happened. It was great experience. I wish I would have followed up or at least went back to one of the TV tapings and said, nobody ever called me, still interested in me, so on and so forth. And then the WCW happened. But between then, funny story, I send my information to a New Zealand promoter, Steve Rickard. 2 weeks later, I get a phone call. He's like, "Do you want to wrestle in Singapore, Malaysia, in front of the Prime Minister in Jakarta, Indonesia?" I'm like, yes. Okay. You go get a passport. I'm going to send you plane tickets. Sends me plane tickets. So I did a whole 10 days in Singapore, in Malaysia, in Jakarta, Indonesia, with Uncle Elmer, Pork Chop Cash. Uh, and that makes me think of Buddy Wayne. That Pork Chop Cash, he's a worker. Uncle Elmer, Pork Chop Cash, and Jimmy Snuka, Mark Lewin. Here's another thing. Mark Lewin's like, "You got good genetics, kid. I want to train you to be a bodybuilder." Well, ladies and gentlemen, you're always taught everyone's working you. Everyone's trying to get something from you. Everyone's full of shit. Everyone's pulling your leg. So I kind of kayfabe Mark a little bit. I know, Mark Lewin, you're kayfabe. I'm an idiot. I actually hit on the nightclub singer that Mark was trying to date. Just
Oh
real
no.
stupid things. But a real quick funny story. Uncle Elmer is smuggling here. Story never told. Uncle Elmer is smuggling Rolexes through Singapore airport. It is Stan Frazier. He has a tube luggage that rolls, and Jon Stewart. He walks through. The luggage goes through. Beep, 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 beep. I mean, 5 army people from Singapore come over, and Uncle Elmer keeps walking, and I go, "Stan, oh Stanley," and he turns around. I'm like, "This is your bag, asshole." I didn't say asshole. I'm like, "Asshole." They opening it up, and Stan comes over, and somebody looks at his belt, WWE Uncle Elmer, and everyone puts two and two together, and they fucking mark out. They start zippering his bag together instead of he would have went to jail. I'm telling you that for 2 or 3 years. They kill you for doing drugs in Singapore, smuggling hot Rolexes, fake Rolexes. They would have put him in jail for 2 years. They started zippering his bag back up, and and he kayfabe everybody, and he's doing the Uncle Elmer, and they let him go through. So I always find that fascinating that Stan Frazier probably would have died in a Singapore jail if they did not recognize that he was from the WWF, and it just goes to show the power of TV. It's unbelievable. Got Stan out of jail.
Yeah, and probably could have taken you with them. But
Yeah,
when you signed again with the Ganyas and you're getting the 250 an appearance deal, I remember from watching they had the contract with ESPN, which
right.
in many ways saved the company for a number
Totally.
of years,
Yeah.
and you made a very distinctive debut. You were pushed immediately. It seemed on television. You had the robes. You had the that finisher that you did with the commentators talked about with the knee pad going down and then how devastating. So you really had a good spot. It seemed right there. What when you went in that time, were you aware of plans that they had for you, and when did you notice that the AWA was really hurting at that time?
Question. Um, Kind of noticed it like at about the second or third week. They brought me in to do the War in the Windy City, which was taking place in Chicago. But they put Tommy Jammer over me. So at this point, I was fed up with pro wrestling and the games and wait a minute, Vince McMahon wants me, but Greg Gagne is going to job me off my first night. Shit like that, Bruiser. That's Dick the Bruiser. My first taping at Toledo. I'm not veering off. Mike Graham, Wojo, and Bruiser have the wild Polynesian man going over this young Beach Boy kid in this horrific territory. And I'm like, I'm not job me my first night in the territory on TV. Anyways, so I felt the same way with Greg. And I pulled Greg aside and I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, good enough for WCW and WWF, but I'm not good enough to be put over Tommy Jammer. He's like, well, he's a star. We're going to establish you, and you should have told me that before Dad left. And I felt bad for Greg. I'm like, he's right. He's like, John, we are going to push you immediately. And again, I want to tell people, Greg and Vern never lied to me, and I'm not jumping forward, but it was the greatest 2 years of experience of my life. So Greg's like, look, first Rochester TV taping, we're going to put you over like $1 million. Trust me, I'm going to put you in a program with Paul Diamond. I'm like, wait, Paul Diamond from Memphis? He's like, yeah, do you know him? I'm like, yeah, I traveled with him for, the summer of '86. He's like, great, you're going to be in a program with him. So, I brought the robe, and I knew a couple of the guys. I met a lot of the guys at the War in the Windy City, and Johnny Valiant and I were brought in, and we did the Sam DeCero Windy City Wrestling Vince McMahon publicity tour in Rochester. They went on went on a TV show, radio interview, and whatnot, and did TV. And just like Greg Gagne told me, I did a jobber match, and my next match was to interfere, get in the ring and cut a promo on Paul Diamond with my Ric Flair suit on. He slaps me. That sets up Paul Diamond is now going to wrestle Akio Sato, who I wrestled in Memphis. Akio Sato and Tarzan Goto. The Beach Boys wrestled them a bunch of times, so I knew him, which was really cool. And I interfered on that match. And like my tag team partner said, he called me the next day. He's like, they put you over like $1 million. And I'm like, this is exactly what Greg told me to do. And I just want to say this, because I know Eric Bischoff takes a lot of heat for being a liar and whatnot, but everything Eric Bischoff said about those days and years in the AWA is 1,000% true. There was no heat, no angst, no ribs, no one hollering, no fights, everybody laughing, everybody getting along. I thank Vern and Greg so much for just like, oh, come here, my son. We will take you in our arms and give you the Johnny Stewart experience that you always wanted. It was lovely. It really was. Nice arenas. Even the spot shows were still in nice little, 1,800 seat arenas and stuff like that, or high schools or fairs. And it was just to start off the telling of that, it was great. And I kind of would always dress with Larry Zbyszko and Adnan El Casey, and became friends with Mike Enos and Wayne Bloom. And Wayne was a tough fucking guy. So if you want to have a guy that who you befriended, Wayne was a good guy. And just to start off the whole story of the AWA, which I've got some really incredible stories. It was just great. I was excited to go to work. I was happy to go to work. I was being pushed and used the way I thought I would, and I gave back as much as I could in the ring, 100%, because just to show my appreciation of Vern and Greg.
Yeah, you were. I mean, a lot of fans have commented on this. In addition to Zbyszko and Enos and Bloom, you were considered one of the highlights of that promotion and during that time frame. You touched on Eric Bischoff, and I know he was there getting his start, and you did a lot of stand-ups with him. What were your experiences like working with Eric in that capacity as the announcer after, I guess, Larry Nelson disappeared?
Well, here's another thing, 68 ways to fuck up your wrestling career is that Greg told me there's a new announcer. Larry's gone. Kayfabe him. He doesn't know anything. Well, when your boss tells you that, I was excited about Eric. Look, there is no reason for me to lie right now. I was excited about Eric and Ralph Strangis, who was the announcer for the hockey team, I think in Seattle. Good looking young guys are coming in to be announcers. Lee Marshall is putting me over like a freaking
Yeah.
$1 million. I was excited that Eric was there. Eric is good looking model guy. He was, hey, he's like a weatherman. I called him like John Davidson of pro wrestling as a compliment. But Greg said, don't smarten him up. Don't talk to him. So it's going around the AWA because of Vern. Oh, Johnny Stewart's dad's a multimillionaire and he's got car dealerships everywhere, and which is true and not true. But nonetheless, like Dale Gagne told Vern, he's like, You think he just gets a check from his dad every week? He needs money like every other college kid for. So anyways, so that was going around and in my opinion, I'm friendly with Eric. I've texted him from time to time. I try to get him on a TV show that I was producing about like wrestling, rescuing independent wrestling organizations like Bar Rescue. Anyways, and I think that here's Eric, by his words, getting about to get his cars repoed. He's 3 months back on rent. He's got no money. And here's this Jonnie Stewart, daddy giving him everything. Wrestling world has given him anything. His body was awesome when he started, and he's not working out anymore. Taking for granted his position, all true. Yes, folks, I'm being yes, all true. Totally took for granted my position with Vernon Gregg and kind of not stopped going from 5 days a week to 2 days a week to the gym. And I could see Eric looking at me going, what does this kid have any reason to be where he is? He doesn't need the money, and I'm struggling and I'm getting my car repossessed. And not being friendly with Eric, not even saying, more than hi to him when we're standing alone in the interview rooms cutting promos, which is really rude. That's not my personality. I'm a nice guy. I try to be a nice guy. I could see why Eric did not like me. And Eric did not return any calls when I tried to get a job with him when he was handing out some very large, substantial contracts. And again, hundreds of thousands of dollars went away from myself, from my life, because of me being me, not necessarily a dickhead, but just stupid, not thinking who you meet on the way up the ladder, you are going to meet on the way back down the corporate ladder. Are you listening to me, folks? And had I probably been a little bit nicer to Eric, maybe went out with them after the matches, explained I'm in college, I'm struggling like everyone else. I don't own that Corvette that I'm driving the arena. It's part of the dealership. My dad lets me drive it. I don't own that. I got my lights turned off once to being a knucklehead college kid living on my own. If I just would have explained that to Eric and maybe would have shown him that I was a genuine person, probably could have gotten a job with him in 96. I'm guessing. Maybe Eric thought I was the shits and whatever, but that cost me. Listening to Greg and doing what my boss said really, I think, cost me a lot of money. And I would love to hear Eric's response to that. Like, is that why Eric didn't want to hire me in WCW, or did he think I was the shits? I don't think I was the shits, but maybe he's like, doesn't have a great body. Ric Flair ripoff. Fuck him. He doesn't need a payday. But that cost me a lot of money. A lot of money. Anyways, so yeah, I was excited.
We
All these young guys were in there.
we appreciate your honesty. Hannibal,
Thank
the
you.
godfather of the Hannibal TV, is watching this, and he said this is a great job, and he does appreciate your honesty as I
Thank you.
do.
Thank you.
I think it's rare in this industry, and I think you're highlighting some very salient points about the politics in wrestling, especially back then. It's almost a minefield that is very difficult to navigate. A fan on social media, though, wanted to ask, this is not a good individual by anyone's measure, but the matches that you had with one Buck Zumhofe, Rock and Roll Zumhofe, you did a number of matches with him, including for the AWA light heavyweight title. They're asking about working with him and whether you were, I guess, surprised at his criminality and that outcome.
Boy, this is well, I have to be honest, right? This is what I promised you. I'd have to be honest. So, as I was dating, here we go, Jack. I was dating the merchandise manager for the AWA's beautiful 21-year-old daughter at the time. And she is giving me information from inside the office that they're going out of business, that some deal with Hulk Hogan and CBS fell through. Johnny, it's all I could just hear her in my voice with her Minnesota accent. It's over. And I'm like, shit, what do I do now? WCW, Rick's still working for them. WWF, maybe I'm not good enough to go. I had the honky tonk man. I'm not good enough to go there. So I'm like, maybe I just go back and play college football one last year. And I told her She tells her dad, and she tells Vern and Greg. So this is a story that's never been told, and it has nothing to do with me, really. It's about Mike Enos, and it's hysterical. So it's the last TV taping. We didn't know this. So Vern and Greg want to take the belts off of the Destruction Crew because they feel the Destruction Crew's headed to WCW. And now it's the first time in 2 years there's tension in the locker room. Wayne Bloom doesn't show up. So Greg goes, "Oh, Johnny, Enos, come on with us." It's Nick Bockwinkel. Jack, this is such a funny story. Nick Bockwinkel, Greg, and Vern Gagne in the shower with Jon Stewart and Mike Enos. Mike's got the belt, the tag team belt. Vern goes, "Look, we know something's going on. We're going to take the belts off you, and that's just the way it is." And Mike Enos goes, "You're not fucking taking the belts off us. My partner's not here. I'm not going to do anything unless my partner's here agreeing with it," which is true. I respect Mike for saying that. And he goes, "I'm not dropping the goddamn belts, and Johnny Stewart's not dropping the belt, and some kind of maneuver so you can take it off us." And Vern goes, "I own this fucking promotion. You're going to do exactly what I say." And Mike Enos, they're screaming at each other. Nick Bockwinkel, I know I do this a lot, but it's true. Bockwinkel's eyes are the size of teacup saucers. And and Greg's like, "Should I get involved?" Mike Enos is going to kick my ass. And so, sorry, Vern Vern grabs the end of the tag team belt. Enos has the other end. They both go into a crouch, and they're doing tug of war, but they look like they're a vaudeville act, like the Wendella brothers in like 1905 in Broadway and a vaudeville show. And they're going back and forth and screaming, "Give me the belt. Give me the goddamn belt. Give me the goddamn belt." Mike Enos is going, "Fuck you, Vern. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it." He rips it from Vern's hands. So Nick Bockwinkel jumps in. He goes, guys, let's try and calm down. Let's figure out a solution." I said, "Yeah, let's figure out the solution. Let fucking the jobber to the stars, Jonnie Stewart, uh, put somebody over." And fucking Greg snaps his head. He goes, "What the fuck do you care? Sneaking behind our back, going back to play college football. Go to the fucking NFL. You're going to last 3 hours." I'm like, "How do you know I'm going back to play college football?" And Greg's like, "Now, Vern's like, there. What is happening?" Enos fucking spits everywhere on Enos's mouth. And Vern goes, "What did you tell us?" I said, "Nate, nothing's for sure. If I'm going to give you my notice, I'm going to give you my notice." And Vern goes, "Okay, just put him in a jobber match." I'm like, Enos goes, "I'm not doing a job." And Vern's like, "No, put you against two guys, and we'll figure this out the next TV taping. But I want Bloom here." And Jack, the fucking locker rooms, is fucking silent. I mean, 30 guys, you can hear a pin drop. I, I go back and sit down with Larry Zbyszko and Adnan. Adnan's eyes are like this. And Larry Zbyszko's got a cigarette, and he goes, "Oh, my boy, Jonnie Stewart. Let's see, Nick Bockwinkel, Vern Gagne, Greg Gagne against you and Mike Enos. Jonnie Stewart, that's the best booking you ever had." I don't know. I thought it was very funny the way, like it was like, you just had a match with Nick Bockwinkel and Vern Gagne and Greg, and Larry was great about stories like that. So that's a story that's never been told. The Mike Enos Vern Gagne fight, and I really don't. Well, it was the last TV taping, so I don't think they ever officially took it off of Mike and Wayne. And another funny story about that too was I had started with the blue and yellow robe, which was made with little. This is a funny Zabisco story, not a funny John Stewart. Little plastic balls, hot gun glued all over the robe. And with the traveling back and forth, the garments, they would fall off onto the floor. So the first night I wear it, all you hear is, "What the fuck, motherfucker!" And then people wrestlers picking up their feet, seeing these little yellow balls stuck to it every like 5 minutes. "Motherfucker, John Stewart, Johnny Stewart, you stupid motherfucker. What kind of cheap robe?" Now, Larry Zbyszko is listening to this. Guys bitching about me all down the hallway for an hour. So finally, Larry sits back down and he goes, oh, my boy, my boy. I think you're going to take the cake in pro wrestling. I'm like, what? I'm that good? No. The fact that somebody's wardrobe got more heat than the wrestler themselves. Yes, Johnny Stewart, you take the cake. He goes, I would start putting your robe out for bookings rather than you. Oh, and Larry Zbyszko was a rolling comedy. It was hysterical. So, yeah, and trying to get Kentucky Fried Chicken from Coquemus Maximus, not knowing it was his, thinking it was catering, and he snapped at me, and he almost like lunged it. There was funny, very funny stories like that. It was just a great time, and then the girl, I'll finish with this. The girl got in a fight with her dad, the merchandise guy. She ran away. She was 21. Came to my condo in Chicago. The father and mother are calling. Greg Gagne gets involved. Greg is calling the car dealership, talking to my father. My dad's like, this guy. He goes, is Greg your boss? I said, yeah. He goes, they're gonna plan like a Rambo mission to like hijack her back from your condo and take her back to Minnesota. And he goes, you better fucking handle this and call him. I'm like, yeah, Rambo Greg, propelling down my condo building to rescue his best friend's daughter. We laugh about it now, but yeah. So I'm like, look, you got to go back home. I'm going to start football soon and stuff like that. But I've never told that story. Greg Gagne gonna do a SEAL Team 6 raid to get the merchandise manager's daughter back from the clutches of Johnny Stewart.
Well, that would have been
Can I tell one more funny story? Can I tell one more? I'm sorry. Tell one more funny story.
Please.
I know I'm motor mouthing.
No.
We have Minneapolis Civic Center, pretty big show. Ric Flair, Pillman on top. The next night, TV in Rochester. Johnny Stewart with his Ric Flair outfit on, reading the Wall Street Journal, getting his shoe shined at the Hyatt or the Marriott St. Paul, the elevator music playing. It's 5 o'clock. I don't have to. St. Paul Civic Center is 10 minutes away. Dun, 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 dun. I get in my little car. I go, and I'm speaking like Larry Zbyszko now. I go to the St. Paul Civic Center, and there's a big black security guard, and there's no one around. And I'm like, hi, where do the wrestlers park? He goes, well, they park over there when there's wrestling, but they ain't no wrestling tonight. I'm like, wait, what? He goes, no, it's tomorrow night. I'm like, holy shit, I got the dates wrong. Well, my crazy ex-girlfriend was taking the booking dates from Greg Gagne. So I call the box office. I wait 10 minutes. Greg gets on the phone. Where the fuck are you? You're in the main event against Tony DiNucci. You stupid mother. He goes, I know that CUNT girlfriend of yours. She's so fucking stupid. I told her. I said, you weren't working. He goes, no, I'm not working you. Your stupid girlfriend. So I have a convertible Corvette. I go down Highway 52 between Minnie and Rochester. I walk in. The fucking locker room they can't even stand up. They're laughing so hard, like, because I'm pulling like a Hercules Hernandez showing up at the wrong town. My hair is all like this. They're dressing me. They're putting the robe on. Tony DiNucci, it's like his second match ever. And they're putting him on the main event with me. And he's like, Johnny, what are we going to do, Johnny? I'm like, shut up and just go in the ring. Little did I know he didn't even know how to put a headlock on. And the match was horrible. I can usually work a broom, but I can't work like a limp noodle. But it was so funny. I mean, he was so nervous. And you watch the match. My hair is like Zorba the Greek from the wind in the Corvette. And so, funny story, funny time, funny
but
time.
at least you made the town. Just want to circle back one sec about your thoughts on Buck Zumhoff, though.
Oh my God, folks, I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. So after that shower with Mike and Vern, I am so sorry. Greg goes, okay, so we're going to put Buck over you. And I do this, like, throw my hands. I'm like, he's like, what? What? You're going back to play college football? I'm like, what? You do that for sure. And what? You're going to put the belt on Buck? Baby, the heel chasing a baby face with the belt? That never works. I get heat with me. I'm chasing him. Well, we can't risk it. If you're going to go back and play, I'm like, do whatever you want. And I looked at Buck. I said, I'm a professional. I'm going to give you a great match. don't, whatever's happening here, don't worry about it. We went out, had a pretty good match. I put him over, but I did raise my arm, so there could be controversy. And I did a bunch of after years after, I did a bunch of, and I'm being honest, brutally honest. I did a bunch of spot shows for Stan Kowalski, and Buck was on, and it was a spot show in Minnesota. Buck's with his daughter, who was like 16 at the time. In between the two events, he goes in the van with his daughter, and I look at Jim Bronzell, and I'm like, what is going on? I'm not going to hype it saying the van was rocking, but it was well known that something kinky was going on with Buck and his daughter. I was revolted, and he actually made a couple of comments a year later, like, "Oh, Jonnie Stewart never books me for his new AWA superstars," and I wanted to tell him, "Yeah, I don't book pedophiles," and it was disgusting. And I'm a Christian. I don't want to judge too harshly. Obviously, Buck has some serious mental health issues, and that doesn't excuse it. It's disgusting. I'm embarrassed that he was my last match on TV for the AWA, and I hope his daughter recovers from the nightmare of being sexually molested by your father, because it's gotta be awful. And yeah, for your viewers and listeners, I was absolutely disgusted, as were all the other boys.
Hannibal is asking, and I know you worked Jimmy Snuka about 95, if I'm not mistaken. He's asking if you have any thoughts about the Nancy Argentino situation, and you
There we
said
go.
that you had a story about Jimmy
Yeah.
to talk
Yeah.
about.
So remember, I was with Jimmy in Singapore. We got along great. I loved him. I I'm a Christian, so I have to forgive people if they have forgiveness in their heart, if they're truly sorry. And I'm going to be very delicate here. And I love Jimmy. I was actually going to help him find a rental gym so we could start a wrestling school in Pennsylvania, I think is where he lived, or Jersey. That's how much I liked him. And we had a huge show at the Pine Bluff Civic Center, 5,200 people. Vampiro was there. He was so excited with the crowd that he wanted to wrestle. He wrestled me, and they fined him $5,000, a story nobody's ever heard of. WCW fined him $5,000 for working me, but he was so excited because of the big crowd. Because he said when WCW didn't have crowds like that. And I drove there with a guy named the Luminous Warrior, the Ultimate Warrior ripoff. But I didn't drive back to Little Rock with him. I drove Jimmy back. Jimmy and I were flying out of Little Rock to go to, I believe, San Antonio. And we stop off at a Holiday Inn. Jimmy gets stuff out of his hotel room, and we're in a car. It was a 2000 Chrysler Sebring convertible two-door. I'll never forget it. This was 2000, and we're in these back lane highway in the middle of midnight, going back to Little Rock, Arkansas, and it's the brother. Well, what you heard about me, brother, with that girl, and I'm like, oh shit, Jack, my right hand to God. This is the God's honest truth, and I don't want to disappoint people. I'm not going to go too far, but he confessed to me exactly what happened that night. In his words, I don't know if it was the truth. It's not and I want to be one of those wrestlers that my word to somebody. Must if I never said this to anybody, and I never have, and I never will. I can tell the story. And on that highway in the middle of the night, the story he told me, I would only tell people that how you were told what he said in the beginning, the first time it would happen, what the police said was kind of a mixture of both of those stories. That's all I will say. And he was very, very hopelessly distressed and sorry about what happened. But he didn't. The story he told me was not one that I think would be um, th- that would be um, that would take away the pain of the Argentina family. But it was close to it. Am I doing a good job of trying to?
No, no,
But
no.
yes, Jimmy
That's
Snuka
fair.
confessed to me exactly what happened that day with Nancy Argentina. I'm not putting myself over. I've waited 30 years to tell that story. I don't do any huge shoots really. I don't get asked to do them, but that's the first time I've ever told that story. And honoring my oath with Jimmy, I hope I am. But the story he told me that he believed happened isn't exactly what the two stories that each side told. That's all I can say. But he did confess to me. Yes.
Well, yeah, and it's quite an unfortunate situation when he was finally brought to justice, and hit
Yeah.
the health issues prevented it, and then he died shortly thereafter. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of wrestling's big
Yeah.
tragedies for sure.
He go ahead. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, no, please go ahead.
No, I'm here to tell the unvarnished truth of a lot of the boys. I haven't gotten to a lot of the guys, and maybe we can do a lightning round or something. But he was such a sweetheart to me. And every time we would hire him with AWA Superstars, the promotion that I helped book for 8 years, he'd smile. I'm with Johnny Stewart. We'd have great matches, a night off, walk and talk. And I have to I be honest with my feelings. He was always kind to me. He took me under his wing in Singapore, and he was always a gentleman. We had a lot of laughs, a lot of bars, and a lot of chicken wings together and beer. And I fondly miss him for his ring work and the man that he was and how he treated me. And that's how I judge people.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, Johnny, we're going to do a part two if you're open
Sure.
to it. But
Yeah.
I want to close out part one with just asking about that rather controversial promotion at the time, the AWA Superstars, and how that came together in your relationship with Dale. That I guess, correct me if I'm wrong, you were in partnership with, and you said you had a story about The Rock being involved in that in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah. Dale takes a lot of heat when every single pro wrestler in 8 years, 70 shows total, everyone got paid. The only monetary dispute was a 10% royalty fee that was in a contract that King Kong Bundy signed and was to pay a theater in Joliet. That was our only monetary dispute, 75 shows, and hiring every person in the business basically from The Rock to CM Punk, arenas, contracts, taking care of old timers, everyone happy. And yes, Dale had some substance issues. I wasn't his partner. I was the booker. I'm not, you know, I'm just saying, I'm just being, just letting the straight. And we constantly, to have 3,000 people was a loser to us. I mean, we've considered that a failure. And when you look at Paul Dangerously, guys having $30,000 on their credit cards, no one getting paid, drug abuse, people dying, um, every no one getting paid. And you look at what we did for 8 years. Yes, yes, Dale used some fake characters, the fake Ultimate Warrior, a fake Olga, so on and so forth. Everyone did that. Not announcing 2 days before that the WWF told came from us sincerely in Michigan, announcing it the night of, when Vince McMahon never announced to anyone that Stone Cold wasn't going to show up for that huge pay-per-view to offer refunds. I mean, this is the world of pro wrestling. And Dale takes a lot of heat, some justified, some not. And I will just simply say, we are we are hired by Bally's to do the grand openings. They want us to hire The Rock to make a personal appearance. This is 1999. We're in a car service in Brooklyn, and Jack, it's 9/11. It's like Armageddon. There are fire trucks, sirens, police officers all over this neighborhood in Brooklyn. As we are going to the Bally's, we look down. Folks, this is my right hand to God. You can FOIA this with the Brooklyn Police Department. We see human beings snaking down Brooklyn city blocks like a concert. This is 4 or 5 blocks long, this snake of people. We are jammed into the traffic. We roll down the window. A cop's there. Dale goes, "What's going on?" He's like, "Oh, some jerk off promoter hired The Rock for a personal appearance, doesn't tell the police." And Dale goes, not telling me he's the promoter. What's the problem? The police officer goes, well, the problem is 8,000 people has showed up to get an autograph with The Rock. So The Rock comes with his lawyer from Florida, a couple of other people. He's got 2 other autograph sessions that day, plus a pay-per-view at Madison Square Garden. We hand The Rock, this is independent wrestling promotion, biggest single day payday ever paid by an indie promotion. We hand The Rock $32,500 for a 2-hour autograph session, 500 people. And I'm going to tell all these macho and stiff young guys in the wrestling business, do you know who the nicest, courteous, most helpful pro wrestler I have ever met in my entire life was? Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I said, Dwayne, there's 8,000 people out there. We don't know what to do. Dale was, his face was white. The lady from Bally's, one of the vice presidents, she's like, what are we going to do? They're going to riot. Dwayne offers to go on the roof. The fire chief gives Dwayne a megaphone. And Dwayne, folks, I am not lying here. The Rock is walking around the roof of the Bally's because he has to speak to people 2 blocks away. So there's 8,000 people in this neighborhood, and The Rock is going on for 5 minutes, cutting a promo. For those of you that won't be able to meet me personally, I'll be back. The Rock will be back, so on and so forth. He comes back down. He signs autographs for 2 hours. Bally sells like 110 memberships. They were ecstatic. But, I'm just pretty proud. I think it's the largest crowd ever for an indie wrestling organization with no TV, and without a doubt, the highest one single day payday to The Rock. And to tell all the young wrestlers, the nicest, most courteous guy I have ever met in 30 years is Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Take it to the bank.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard that as well. Very successful guy. All the reason to not be, but definitely is.
Fucking sweetheart.
I feel, Johnny, that we've scratched the surface, and I definitely want to do a part 2 where we get into some more of the personalities that you encountered in the business. But before we get the information about anything that you have ongoing and where fans can contact you if appropriate, I wanted to ask you. You and Raven started at about the same time in the business, and I got to ask, what's your secret? Because you obviously don't have the typical sort of wrestling lifestyle end story here. And no disrespect to Raven, but my goodness, what a difference.
Exactly. Yeah. No drugs, no heavy drinking. I'm not saying I eat right all the time, but no drugs, no massive steroid abuse, as you can see by my body, and no drugs, no drinking, no heavy long-term steroid abuse, and no smoking cigarettes. I'm not a choir boy, I'm not a teetotaler, but I talked about this to both of my parents are dead now, but I talked about this to my sister 2 days ago. I'm like, can you imagine if mom had to bury me? My mom and I were very close. My sister's like, you would have destroyed her life. And I was more terrified of dying, truly, than I was of, you know, letting myself do recreational drugs to that degree. I was allergic to cigarette smoke. I'm not taking any pats on the back. That did not lead me to marijuana, which I think didn't lead me to coke or heroin. I had ADD, so cocaine and speed had no effect on my brain. It actually calmed me down the one time I tried speed. So it was a bunch of factors, and that Scotty and I started the same year, about a month apart. That I ended up out of the wrestling world a little bit better shape than a lot of the guys. I just didn't want to be that guy, divorced in a 1-bedroom apartment in Tampa, not being able to provide my family, pay for weddings in college, and I took that path, but I was also forced to take that path by the wrestling world. And I just want to tell everyone out there, all of my childhood friends from grade school and high school all say, Johnny would have got that contract from WCW or from Vince McMahon. Nobody knows where I would have ended. It probably would have ended up abusing steroids. I know I would have taken painkillers to stay on the road, keep that money coming in. So I am not the choir boy preaching from the top of the the tower. Life has a strange way of protecting you sometimes, and thank God that happened, because I look back, I had this great experience. I only wanted to be in the ring one time. I ended up wrestling on ESPN for the light heavyweight championship of the world. Nobody can take that away from me. I traveled around the world for free, still married. I got money. Not bragging. I do okay, and I got a future, and that's better than being at a WrestleMania for me. For me. So, but thank God, stay off drugs, folks. Stay away from cigarettes, please.
Well, and I think that you have a fascinating story, and I mean that. I think we've only scratched the surface. When we go offline, we'll arrange for a part two. We'll get more of the fan questions. And I apologize to the fans. Lots of fan questions still. We've got more than enough to do another episode. I've really enjoyed this, and
I want to talk about the guys. I want to give my opinion to the fans about 50 or so wrestlers. Not to run them under the bus, just to give you I think it's interesting. I think my opinions is valid, and good and bad, and I really would love to answer questions and love to go down the list of every guy that I've traveled with, worked with, cried with, you name it. Yeah.
Well, we're definitely going to do that. But in the meantime, do you have any contacts on social media if the fans wanted to reach out or keep up with what you're doing? And I know you're a successful business person. Do you have anything along those lines that would be relevant for the fans to know?
I enjoy doing this because I'm very good about answering my emails. If anybody wants to email me, my personal email, because I'm not on social media to any degree, it's John, Jon, Allen, Alan, Stewart, Stewart, at AOL. I know I'm an old guy, .com. I'm really good about answering people's emails. Just, don't expect me to answer at 3:00 in the morning. I go to bed at 9:00. But anybody that's got anything positive or negative or revelatory to say or ask me, I'd be more than happy to answer people's questions and consider it an honor.
Well, sir, we are definitely going to touch base and get that part two in, but okay. I really want to thank you for this part one. Fascinating stuff. Looking forward to the next time, and I'm sure the fans have appreciated your insight. So thank you very much, Mr. Stewart, for coming on the Great North Wrestling Podcast.
Thank you to all your production crew. They've been great. You've been great in your correspondence, and sincerely, I'm not working anyone. This was an honor for me. I don't do any of these, and it was an honor for people to listen to my experience. And I hope I was honest and self-effacing enough. And the Buddy Landell story without the drug abuse. And I hope people appreciate that. And I can't wait to come back on and talk to your listeners and viewers. Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, fans, we're going to set that up. But if you haven't already, why have you not subscribed to Canada's top combat sports channel, the HANNIBAL TV? 420,000 subscribers and growing. And make sure you hit the notification button so you get the notification as to great content like this when it comes forward. Until next time, I'm Jack Kilby. Thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching the HANNIBAL TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews.